recording there. Well, I'd like to say thank you all for attending tonight's webinar. And in advance, thanks to Gary, who always puts on a good show. We're happy that he was willing to do this and provide some valuable time to teach you guys about really what's happening now with online education and how you can be better at it. So I'm sure he'll be sharing some great ideas. If you know anyone who signed up for this webinar, maybe isn't here, it will be shared. If you're a member, it will be in the member portal. And if it happens to be a non-member, just have them contact Wendy or me, and I'll throw our emails in the chat window so you have them, and then we can get that out. Gary, if you have any resources that you'd like to share with the group, just kind of standard routine, afterwards, just send it on to Wendy, and she can get it posted along with the recording of the webinar.
Perfect. I will do that. And for those who are here, I will even put this in the chat window for you so you can have access to it while we're working, because there's some links and stuff that you might want to check out sooner rather than later. So I'll make sure that you've got this, and if anyone else shows up, I'll be happy to put it in there a second time later.
Okay, you all have fun, and we'll see you shortly.
All right, thanks so much, Bill. Well, good evening, everybody. Thanks so much for being here with us. It's really great to be able to do a webinar tonight. And I know that everybody's probably spent their fair share of time on webinars, Zooms, meetings, Google Meets, Microsoft Teams. What else is out there? I don't even know. But I know we've all spent a considerable amount of time on video calls and video chats with others. And I appreciate you making some time to do a little bit more of that tonight. So we are going to be sharing some interesting ideas tonight that I'm hoping are going to be new to many of you. We're talking tonight in our webinar series about teaching smarter, not harder in blended learning environments. And so we'll talk a little bit about that. I want this to be a really practical session for everybody. That's kind of my goal when I do these sort of webinars. And so if you have questions or comments at any time tonight, feel free to throw those in the chat window, and you can converse with each other. And then I'll be happy to check that periodically and be able to respond when I can. The other thing that I can assure you we're going to try to do tonight is give you a chance to explore some of the tools that I'm going to share with you, so that you have a chance to maybe tour around them. Whether we do that as a whole group or you get a chance to do that individually tonight, I want you to be able to feel like you've had a chance to see some of these things in action. So with that in mind, I see we've got a great mix of people from different parts of the country, and I appreciate everybody tuning in from where they are. I know for some of us, you're just getting done with work, and for others, you are getting started with your evening. So again, we appreciate you being with us. So we asked you all to introduce yourselves a little bit, and I want to be able to introduce myself as well. So I want to share with you, let's see if this will work. I'm going to put a link in the chat window that I'm going to ask you to open up on your side and see if you can see what I am seeing. Wow, that was a lot of C's. So we're going to see if you can see what I am seeing here on what I call my whiteboard, my digital whiteboard. So to tell you a little bit about myself, so my name is Gary Aboud. I'm from Detroit, Michigan, and I'm an educational consultant in private practice. Before I went into private practice, I did school administration and then spent over a decade teaching high school science and technology. So I've been a modeling workshop leader for going on 7 years now, and I've taken workshops in physics and chemistry and taught with modeling instruction in both Arizona and Michigan. So it's something that's near and dear to my heart. And when we all got thrown into the blended learning and remote learning situation, one of the first questions that I was starting to think about with some of my colleagues was, what do we do for the modelers who are so used to and dependent upon that face-to-face interaction for being able to do the things that they do? And so coming up with ways to reproduce the treasures, I would say, the treasure trove of instructional strategies and approaches that are part of the modeling method, to reproduce those online is no easy feat. And so the challenge is daunting. And this summer I had the chance to co-lead one of the online chemistry workshops with my colleague Scott Milam. And we learned a lot about online instruction as it relates to modeling instruction. And so we want to share some of those great things tonight that we think can be helpful to all of you in the modeling community. So again, thanks for being here. It looks like several of you have already gotten the link to work and you've gone over to the whiteboard. So that is fantastic. I want to share with you, jump right into sharing tools with you. And that's what we're going to be talking about tonight. So the first thing I want to share on our list is this tool called whiteboard.fi. And as I mentioned, I want to be very practical tonight. Our agenda is to share a few different tools and some techniques for online instruction. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to do so in the chat window. I am going to probably go a little bit out of order here, and that's okay because the order doesn't matter. But I want to show you first whiteboard.fi. And this is a tool that, if you haven't seen it already, is a very easy to use and easy to share, so students can use it, whiteboarding tool for the digital setting. And so what you essentially get here is you get a classroom set of whiteboards for individuals, and you get a teacher whiteboard. And so as students join your room, they give you a room code, you share that with your students, maybe through the chat window or in some other way through your learning management system. And then students can post on their whiteboards, and then the teacher can see them. So I noticed that several people have whiteboards, but they haven't written on them yet. If you were all to go ahead and write what city are you watching from tonight on your whiteboard, we will see in our screen if anything changes in what it looks like from the teacher side for things to pop up as students do them. So this is a really simple and easy tool to use. And you'll notice that as people write things, they start to pop up, and the teacher view allows you to see a grid of all the student whiteboards in one place. Of course, if you have a laptop, maybe using the text feature is more advantageous. If you're on a tablet, you can use the handwriting tools just the same. And so you've got a couple of varieties of tools that can be used here. So we've got Cincinnati, Richmond, I see West Hills, California, I see Rhode Island as well. And I live in, oh, Akron. I hope that's Akron. That's not Akron, that's Acton. Acton, Massachusetts, it looks like, for Anna. We're glad that you are here. So as you can see with whiteboard.fi, pretty simple and easy to use. And for the teacher side of things, I can click this button up here that says toggle my whiteboard, and then it will show you what I'm doing on my whiteboard. So I can have a whiteboard, students can have theirs, and we can see them all together. There's a little button up here that says push, and I can click that, and it should send it to all students. And then what that will do is it will allow you to see what I just put on my whiteboard from your student view. So wave at me if that's happening. Awesome. So simple, easy to use, something you can get started with right away. You don't have to do all the sign up and get a free trial and all that business. It is just a web tool. It's clean, simple, easy to use. And when you're all said and done with the student whiteboards, you have the opportunity to click and zoom in on them. Although now you see what I put on everyone's. But I was going to ask you something earlier about what's been maybe a funny moment of yours in online teaching. And I know one of mine in working with college students, which is one of the groups that I get to teach. I had a student who forgot to turn their audio off on Zoom, and they were joined from their phone, and they had their phone in the bathroom with them while they were using the bathroom. So that was, I think, probably the most outrageous thing that I've seen so far on Zoom, which I don't know if that's creepy or funny or a mix of both, but at any rate, there you go. So whiteboard.fi, great, easy, free tool to use, and I highly recommend it. So let me come back over here to my agenda, but I want to pause there, and I'm going to invite you in the chat window right now to share what would be one way that you think you could use whiteboard.fi in your classroom or with your learners. Okay, so some neat ideas come in, building visual representations of a model for students to see each other's work in real time. particle diagrams, that's one of my favorites. You can ask a question they can draw and you can evaluate it without leaving the main room. That's a really good one there, Paul. We appreciate that. From Mark, individual check-ins on what students are thinking about. Yes, that's absolutely true. You can make this a great way to make thinking visible. And finally, representations of models or exit tickets. Yeah, I think those are all some really terrific ways that you can get started with something like whiteboard.fi right away. So let's go ahead and get right to our next tool. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again. Let's see if I can move this over just a little bit. So what's coming up next, I want to talk about another online web tool that I think you will all like and you may not have seen before. It's called Deck Toys. So Deck Toys, which has a very unique web address, it's deck.toys, is a great platform for creating what they call personalized learning paths or adventure learning in their case. So basically the idea here is that you would create what would look like a game board or a map with different hotspots on the map. And students would begin at one place and they would move from point to point. And at each of those locations that are tagged on the map you make are different activities for them to do. Some of those activities might be something like watch a video, it might be to complete some questions, it might be to review some terms, it might be to do a quiz, any of those kinds of online learning type activities. But the neat thing about Deck Toys is that it allows you to create differentiated and personalized paths for learning based on how students do with the different activities that you've set up in your deck. So that allows students to kind of move at their own pace, but it also gives opportunities for you to differentiate that when students get to a spot and demonstrate mastery, they can go one way. And if they demonstrate that they're struggling or having difficulty, it can direct them another way to be able to go back and practice things again. So it's a really terrific way to create a map for learning that allows you to be able to differentiate and personalize the experience for your students. It also does a really great job of helping them to be a little bit more independent when they're working asynchronously so that they don't always need to have you there to tell them what to do next or to have to go somewhere. It just kind of lets them self-direct. So let me show you a little bit about what this looks like. I'm going to go ahead here and switch my view for just a moment. And what you'll see with Deck Toys is that they basically spell it out very clearly for everybody. You are going to be able to set up a classroom, and they have a freemium model for their pricing. So you can set up 2 classrooms for free. And then if you have more than that, you would buy the Premier subscription, or the premium subscription rather. You can start with the gallery of decks that they have, and you can repurpose from a template, which can be really great. I'll show you a little bit about what those, I thought I was signed in. Okay, hold on just a second. You can start with the gallery and build off of a template, or you can create one from scratch. And what you do essentially as you do this is you're going to create a deck, and then it's going to give you a little bit of a board that you can start to lay out the different activities that you're going to do. And kind of like a little bit of a roadmap, you'll see that it has all these different activities and different types that you can put in here. And those allow you to drop those pins anywhere on the board. And then from there, you can connect those pins to different activities that you want. For example, you can have a slide or a study set of flashcards or some kinds of practice questions, or you can have like a check for understanding, they call it a signpost. As things go through and you present these different types of content and build your board, as you'll see here, it gives you the ability to create different paths that you can anticipate your students might go on as they go and move through a learning progression. So I recognize that this may not be the right tool for every situation, but it can be a really great one to organize a set of asynchronous or independent practice type activities. So immediately where my mind goes with something like this is having a spot where students can practice the periodic table symbols and element names, being able to have a check for understanding quiz around nomenclature or bonding or formula writing, or be able to see a set of slides that have instructions on how to do stoichiometry questions using a before, change, and after table. So just as a couple of examples there, you can build the progression, and as you do so, you start to set up what the possible learning paths are, and you can differentiate them, as I said before, for an easier or a harder, more difficult challenge. That allows students to be able to choose their own adventure sometimes, but also demonstrate that they're ready for an adventure by passing a certain checkpoint. As you go through this, the system walks you through everything. It's very intuitive to use, and it's very fun. So one of the things that you'll notice is that it has an element of fun and an element of kind of like a game. So one of the things you'll see on Deck Toys is a lot of language around gamification. Now, what that means in the context of Deck Toys isn't that students are doing things just to earn points for a grade in your class, but rather that they're playing on a game board and have a choose your own adventure style approach to personalizing the learning experience. So I think that's a really important one to distinguish there, because I know for myself, I've never been a big fan of gamification in the classroom because it really gets a lot of students thinking, I'm just doing this in order to get a grade. And what we're talking about here is a personalized learning path to help them to be able to learn at their own pace. So you can use all the different tools that they have here to be able to build learning objects, to build flashcard sets, to build slides, and all of those different things. And then once you're done making your Deck Toys deck board, you can share that classroom link where students can then go to it from something like a Zoom meeting, or you can post it on your learning management system for them to be able to use. It makes for a great substitute lesson plan as well. In the event that you're not able to be in class one day, whether you're in person or online, students can use Deck Toys from a mobile device or from a laptop or a computer. And so this makes for a great opportunity to help keep the learning going, even if students are more on the independent side. So let me pause there and ask you again, we'll turn back to the chat window. I'd like to turn over to all of you to ask, where do you see an opportunity to use something like Deck Toys with your learners right away? Yeah, and Paul, thanks so much for the comments there that you're noticing this could be really great for genetics questions as they progress through different models of inheritance. I think that's an interesting point to kind of look at the way that we develop and deploy and refine models, that using kind of a personalized learning path would help them to be able to do that. And that makes me think similarly in chemistry, to be able to go from the different models of the atom that we have over time. This could also be something to explore there as well. So great for review and mastery. Someone mentioned that's absolutely true as well. Classification of organisms in marine biology or food webs, all of those would have a great use as well for Deck Toys. So as you're thinking about ways that you can use Deck Toys in your classroom with your learners, let me pause there and ask what questions anyone might have about these first couple tools. Great question. So Carol says, does the deck path need to be completed in one lesson? It does not. So you as the teacher are setting up a series of different activities, and they can be done all in one sitting, or they can be revisited later for multiple attempts. So it kind of like a game, students would be able to pick up where they left off and should be able to keep going after taking a break from it as well. So that's a really great question. Okay. The next thing coming up on our list, by the way, if I could just say, the number of times that I have been in workshops online in the last 6 months, I can't even count them anymore. I don't know about all of you, but professional development online is just something, it's like a pastime. I feel like I do it all the time. So I come across things all the time that I think are new, and then I find out that they're not new to other people, or vice versa. And so in preparing for tonight, I'm like, okay, what are the things that are going to be new and exciting and maybe useful to everybody that they haven't already seen? And so it's super hard to find stuff that no one knows about or that few people have seen. So I'm hopeful that the stuff I show you tonight is going to be just that, either new to you or gives you ideas for new ways to use things you know about. And the next thing up that I want to show you is something called a choice board. How many of you are using choice boards in your classroom already? Okay, so that looks like not too many people. So check it out. A choice board sounds a lot like what it is. or rather it is a lot like what it sounds, and it is a board that has a bunch of different activities from which students can choose what they do. Again, it's a personalized learning tool. It allows students to have more agency in picking what they're doing, gives them some differentiation in their learning paths, and it allows you to set up ahead of time the activities you want students to engage with and the options to help them to go farther with their learning. This particular choice board that I want to show you tonight is an approach, or rather a method, that's known as mild, medium, and spicy. And what you do with this kind of salsa style choice board is you're creating a grid with different types of activities, and they are basically categorized as either mild, medium, or spicy. So we steer clear of simplistic language like easy, medium, hard, and we go for more metaphoric language here to add a little bit of pizzazz to the concept of a choice board. But what we do in creating something like this, and I'm going to show you the full version in just a moment, is we're giving students different categories of the learning process to engage with different types of activities that are kind of ranked based on their difficulty or their accessibility for different groups of students. Again, it's something that gives differentiation, personalization, and allows students to have some agency in what they choose to do. So the full version of this, which I've made available through a link on the slide deck that I shared with you, looks like this. Let me see if I can make this a little bit bigger. Oh, that's very big. Let's go like this. All right. So the way that this works, and I've created this one in a Google Doc for all of you, and what you're able to do if you were to use this link, and I'll put this right now in the chat room to make it easy for everybody, is it's going to ask you to make a copy so that you'll be able to personalize it for yourself on Google Docs. But what we basically do in a choice board is we're giving students the opportunity to make decisions about what they do in each of the main areas of a learning progression. So you'll notice that there are categories here such as learn, practice, explore, and wrap up. So these activities would allow students to do those 4 tasks with a particular topic. And then at the top, there are directions that let students know what they're required to do and then what their options are for choices. So it says here, students must complete 2 activities from column A, at least 1 from column B. You may do more than 1, and then 1 from C and 1 from D. They get to choose whether or not they're doing the mild, the medium, or the spicy version. And each of the different versions has some type of a task that allows them to engage with the content in one way or another. Now, I just put a bunch of different examples of types of tasks up here. No one in particular that I like more than another, but just to kind of give you the flavor of what sort of things you can put in here. Now, what's really helpful when you give a student a choice board is to make it easy for them to do the things that you want with it. And so you'll notice that there are links over here in a couple of these spots that help students go directly where we want them to go, and also provide helpful references for the tasks that we want them to do. So the wrap up in the medium version is to create sketch notes for this topic. And if you don't know what sketch notes are, we've made it easy by putting a link, what is sketch noting? And then students could go there and watch that and check it out. And so you give students the directions that you want them to have here, and then all the things that are required, and then you basically let them go and give them a timeline to submit this. Again, the choice board allows them to start taking their learning farther and to start pushing their understanding to higher levels. And if you want to offer even further differentiation, you can say something like I did in number 3, for a challenge, students have to choose only from the grayed out boxes. And so that can kind of allow for you to maybe offer a specific challenge to students who are advancing with the topic more quickly than others. So with that in mind, you can personalize this document however you like and then share it out with your classes. And what some teachers do is they make one of these for each unit or each topic of study that they're doing. So if we were using this with, let's say, the chemistry modeling curriculum framework, we might start out and have one of these that deals with gas laws, one of these that deals with density, one of these that deals with temperature and energy, et cetera, et cetera. And so we might have one of these for each unit. And it's not that this is the only thing students do, but it's one way to be able to deliver, especially online, different variety of activities and give students an easy and organized way to navigate through those learning progressions. Okay, let's pause there. I know this is going quickly, but again, we wanted to make sure that it was practical and actionable for all of you. Let's pause there and ask in the chat window for you to post what would be one way that you think you could use choice boards with your students. And again, these are all tools that can be used in the classroom face-to-face or online in a virtual setting using your learning management system or a video conferencing tool like Zoom, Google Meet, or Microsoft Teams. So we'll go ahead and give you a moment there to share your ideas in the chat window for whatever you think might be a useful way for you to go ahead and engage with choice boards. And then while you do that, I'm going to go ahead and set up our next tool that you can use with your students. All right, so Kevin mentions this could be a great PD tool. You know, that is an absolutely wonderful idea. And I'm wondering if anyone would agree with that, because I know that the PD, once things have gone online at a lot of schools, has kind of stalled out. And so I'm wondering if that's something that you all think might be, might be something worthwhile as well. So that's certainly worth considering. If you do professional development at your school, you can certainly mention choice boards and ask for some more flexibility in what you get to learn about and how you get to do things. Someone mentions that they teach physics. Carol says, I can see using a choice board for a unit on light. That's a really great example there in terms of the topic. Ryan agrees with Kevin's idea for using it for PD, so thanks for those as well. All right, we're going to switch gears now and jump into our next tool for teaching smarter, not harder in blended learning. And this one is going to look perhaps a little bit more familiar, but I'm hoping that this is a new take on it that you haven't perhaps used or seen before. And it is called the self-assessment rubric. I don't know if it was invented by Bob Marzano or if it was just popularized by him in his book, The Art and Science of Teaching, but you will see what this is all about in just a moment. So the idea here with a self-assessment rubric is that we are allowing students to have an easy way to rate their current level of understanding and their current level of ability with a particular learning objective, skill, or content area. And when they do so, we give them this 4-point scale to help them understand where they are with their learning so far. And then we provide actionable steps to help them know what to do based on what level that they're at. And as you can see, there's a visual piece to this with the color coding that helps them to kind of know where are they in the grand scheme of things in terms of being stalled out, more the red color, or on the go and green lighted to go. So basically we use a 4-point scale, which is famously called a Marzano 4-point scale. And we explain in the middle column, what does that mean? So a level 4 means you can understand it, you don't need any help whatsoever. And a level 3, you understand it, but you need a little bit of help in order to master it or get it right. Level 2, you do get it somewhat, but you need a lot of help to be able to do it. And number 1 is you cannot do it independently, even with help. And so it shows that you have a really low basic or not even an understanding at all. So the thing that we want to point out is that with this tool, where it goes beyond the normal rubrics that people use for self-assessment is that it provides action steps for what students can do next. And this is something that I have not seen before with other self-assessment rubrics. Now, I don't know about you, but I've been a big fan of standards-based grading in my classroom for about the last 10 years. And one of the things that I found most challenging was not the giving of feedback to help students know where they are, but the giving of action steps to help them know what to do next. And so it's great to help a student understand that they're at a basic level or a proficient level or a developing level, but if they don't know what they can do next to advance their learning or their understanding, then those pieces of feedback remain just pieces of feedback. So where we have advanced on that in this self-assessment rubric is by adding this what's best next column. And the idea here is, what do you do if you are at the red level? What are some options? And there are a few different ones here. Schedule a meeting with your teacher to go over things and get extra help. Work through your misunderstandings. Get some help to reteach on the topic from your teacher or someone else. Then once you've got some help with the main content, then you can move on to the ideas from level 2, which include reviewing the original notes that you might have, rewatching a video or something like that, practicing with different tasks over and over again until you've got a better handle on it, and then perhaps reviewing it and talking it over with another person. Once you get to that level 2 and you're feeling good about yourself and you just need a little bit of help, how do you get yourself up to the highest level? Well, continue practicing with the same types of tasks, but maybe some new ones that you haven't tried before. And then continue reviewing your notes and working towards being able to explain what you know to other people. Finally, if you're at the top level and you really get this, how do you make sure that you stay there? For this type of feedback, we usually don't tell students what to do. We usually just say, good job once you've gotten to the top, and that's all there is. But this is going to take that next step and say, once you're at the highest level, to stay there, make sure you're reviewing what you've learned and make sure that you're taking an opportunity to explain and to peer teach with other people. Because it's through talking that we can solidify what we know, and that's something that is especially important in the modeling classroom. So this self-assessment rubric can be given to students when they're doing any sort of a task. It can be used with a set of learning objectives or standards statements if your classroom is standards-based. And you can use this pretty much with any unit of study to help students prepare for an assessment or to check their own understanding as they're moving through a learning progression. So let me pause there to see what questions anyone might have about anything so far, including the self-assessment rubric. And if there aren't any questions, I would love to turn it over to all of you to share what might be one way that you think you could use a self-assessment rubric like this in your classroom. All right. So I see somebody says this could be great for helping students to review and develop mastery. Also another vote for review. Someone's using standards-based grading already, so this could probably fit very naturally into what you're doing. Awesome suggestions here. All right, well, we appreciate the engagement. Someone mentions the colors work well with the Go Formative color coding. That is 100% true, and the people at Go Formative are awesome. I totally love what they're doing over there, and that is a great tool. So I'm glad to hear that someone is using that as well. All right, let's jump ahead. We've got some more things to show you, and I think you're gonna like what's coming up. The next thing I wanna share with you, how many of you use energy bar charts in your classroom, fondly known as LOL diagrams? Yeah, so this is pretty much everybody who's on this call. Because why? Because that's what we do in modeling instruction. So what do you do when you need to do energy bar charts virtually or digitally? Well, I want to share with you a handy dandy way to do them using Google Sheets. And Google Spreadsheets, or Google Sheets as it is known, is an awesome tool for doing spreadsheets. But one thing that people maybe don't use it as often for is generating graphs and having those graphs change dynamically with a data table that's in the spreadsheet. So what you can do here, and I've set up a template for all of you to be able to copy and use, and that link is again available to you in the slide deck. This allows you to have a data table where students can put in an arbitrary number of bars for their situation of thermal, phase, and chemical energy. If you're teaching physics, you can switch this to be gravitational, kinetic, and elastic, or whatever energy storage mechanism you're talking about in your particular field. Students put in the before numbers, they put in the after numbers, the change column calculates automatically, and then the graphs update automatically so that they can show visually and see quickly the energy bar charts before and after. The last thing students do here are that they have two arrow objects that are floating and movable, And those arrow objects allow them to grab and drag the up or down arrow into the system surroundings ring over here. And they can then use that to show, was there an overall transfer of energy into or out of the system? And so by being able to save time creating these LOL diagrams or the energy bar charts by using Google Spreadsheets and a template, you allow students to spend more time focusing on the dialogue and the discussion about what these charts mean and less time constructing them in an online or digital environment. So this has been particularly useful over the summer in our online modeling instruction workshops. And one of the things that people find useful about this is that in Google Spreadsheets, you can create multiple tabs with different worksheets. And so what they sometimes do is they will duplicate this spreadsheet into multiple tabs. And in each of those tabs, they'll put a homework problem and paste that in there. And then students make a copy of the spreadsheet and they do their homework problems for energy bar charts right here in the spreadsheet. And again, it's a time saver because the template's already set up. So they just need to keep track of the energy and don't have to worry about building or recreating a digital bar chart. Okay, let me pause there and give you a chance to react in the chat room, in the chat window rather, to what ways might this fit into your classroom? And as you do that, I will share that one of the most interesting things about working with something like this is that you have the opportunity to do a really great thing for your students, which is make it easy for them to do the right thing. So a lot of times in online learning, you have a wide range of digital skills among your students. And so if you were to just put out a blanket task like do an energy bar chart for these homework questions on this worksheet, you would get a variety of different products that they would give you. You might get a Google Doc, you might get a PDF, you might get a piece of paper that someone hand drew and they took a picture and uploaded the photo. You might get somebody with a tablet and they drew it all by hand. You get all these different things, and that's great, but what do we do to help make sure that it's efficient and that students have equal access to be able to show their knowledge? Doing something like this allows you to be able to take the variety out of it so that students can focus on the learning and showing what they know. And that's really terrific. So some really great examples. A couple people put that they think it'd be even better than the Google Slides version. And I can speak to that because I've used both. The spreadsheet version does work a whole lot better and much more efficiently. So appreciate that someone else is noticing that potential there too. And definitely someone said you could use this in physics with the study of energy as well. And so I think you'll notice that the treatment of energy, as it is consistent across the different disciplines in modeling instruction, lend themselves all really well to something like this. All right, let's jump ahead next in our list. One of my favorite tools out there, it is called Beautiful.ai. And it is another one with a really funky web address, but this URL indicates at Beautiful.ai that they are using artificial intelligence and they're doing something beautiful with it. What are they doing? Well, I'm glad you asked. They are helping you make slide decks and make them quickly. So what this app does is it allows you to make slide decks using artificial intelligence to do the design so that you can focus on the content of what is on your slides and not spend all of your time resizing text boxes, changing fonts to make sure they all match up, getting the colors just right, or changing all the graphic design around. And so if you are somebody like me who takes a lot of pride in making slide decks or having your students make slide decks, this is an awesome tool that you can be using. And it will save you, I promise, probably about half, if not more, of the time that you would spend making a slide deck for a presentation. You can do it in half that time using Beautiful.ai. So I want to show you real quickly what this looks like when you get into it. So let me switch over here to my other screen and sharing. Here we go. Make this a little bit bigger. So the way that this works is that you have the opportunity to create a slide deck, just like you might in Google Slides or in PowerPoint. And as you are in here, it has a variety of different tools that you can use. And as you move through your slides, it's got all these different nice templates, and it keeps everything really well organized, really nicely and cleanly laid out on the page. And all of the design work that you see here, I did none of it. All I did was start a new slide, find a picture, put some text in, and the app does the rest. If you want to make things look really vibrant and clean and save yourself time to make a slide deck, this is an easy tool to be able to work with. So what you'll see is that each slide type allows you to add text and or images, and you can make them larger or smaller according to the templates. And then when you do so, you get a variety of different features for your text options, like moving the text onto different spots all around so that you can have your image look the way that you want. No more dragging stuff around and finding just the right spot. You tell it where you want it to go and it moves it right there. And then if you want, you can change the layout. They've got a variety of different ways that you could do something like this. So I can switch it and make it look different. I can have it be like this or like this. And with just a click of a button, I can lay out the different way that I want everything to be. And it, again, saves me the time from having to work on the graphic design so that I can focus on what content is in there. And as if this wasn't good enough, if you like to get good images from the internet and include them in your slides to make them eye-catching, then all you need to do is press the little photo button and replace the image, and you can go to their image gallery, which sources free and open source images from the web that are all of high quality, and you can pretty much pick anything that you'd like, and then you'll see all these different images will pop up, and you can include one on your page. So I can change it to that. And then I notice that this person's cut off a little bit. So I'm going to change it to be this layout. And then within just a moment, I'll have the ability to move my image so that my person is visible. And now my slide is done. And so just like that, I can be able to build a slide and build a slide deck. And I'm already moving on to my next slide, keeping things simple, clean, and designed for you so that you don't have to worry about spending all your time doing the tedious work. You can spend your time presenting and teaching students. So let me pause there. Beautiful.ai. There is way more to it, and I'd love for you to check it out on your own. Explore it, play around with it, and I think you'll find that it'll be one of your favorite tools. Whether you're teaching your students or giving a presentation for PD or something related to that, I know that online we're doing a lot more with slide decks and screen sharing these days than we might have been doing in the classroom. So why not save ourselves some time and headache and create a slide deck with Beautiful.ai. All right, let me pause there and give you a chance to ask any questions that you might have, or also to be able to share how might you be able to use this in your classrooms. So we got some great questions here and some comments. So this looks like it could be compatible with Pear Deck. That is a great question. I don't know that it's directly compatible, but what I can say is that Beautiful.ai will export your slide deck as a PowerPoint or as a PDF, and I do know that both of those are compatible with Pear Deck. So it would be one extra step to export it, but then you could bring it right into your Pear Deck and use it from there. Can it be used to make posters? I'm not entirely sure what you mean by that, but what I would say, Kevin, if you want to actually unmute and kind of elaborate a little bit what you meant by making posters, I'll try to respond as best I can.
Sure. PowerPoint can often be used to make scientific posters.
Mm-hmm.
And so if it ends up doing the graphic design for you, I just made the natural connection to see if it.
No, that's a really great question. So what I can say is that I know in PowerPoint you can change the dimensions of your slide. In Beautiful.ai, you can't. They're all 16 by 9 traditional slide deck size. But what you could do potentially is generate an image that you could include on a poster somewhere else, or as the starting point of a PowerPoint, and then resize and go from there. I would say if you're interested in a tool for making posters that's really helpful, I'm a big fan of Canva.com. If you haven't seen Canva, that'd be a great one to check out for making posters as well. All right, thanks so much. Last one, someone said, we have an upcoming science department open house. That would be a great place to use this. I couldn't agree more. I don't know about you, but whenever I see a new, fresh looking slide deck at a conference or when someone's giving a presentation, it really catches my attention. And so I always love to be able to be on the cutting edge of the way things look when I give a presentation as well. And I think that for back to school nights or science department open house, this could be a great way to do that and stand out and show that you're on the leading edge of what's possible. So thanks for those ideas. Okay, I think we've got just a couple more here. The next one that I want to share with you is, let's come back here so I can share my screen. The next one that I want to share with you is called HyperDocs. Now, HyperDocs might be something that you have used before or heard of, but if you haven't, this is not as much a thing as much as it is an approach to doing a thing. So here's what I want to share with you. A HyperDoc is a term for taking a Google Doc and making it a dynamic landing place for a variety of different things. So what you get to do with a HyperDoc is essentially take all the activities that you want to do in a learning progression or in a lesson or a unit and organize them into a Google Doc that has a bunch of hyperlinks that take students to each step in the learning progression. So think of it like an interactive agenda for your class or for a unit or a lesson. And everything's housed in one single place. Before there were learning management systems to take everything in one place, you could use a HyperDoc. And it's visually nicely laid out, a lot like the way that we did deck toys, but done with less images and more in a Google Doc rather than a specific app itself. So it provides everybody a chance to access all the things that they need right in a single document in one organized digital space. So they have a lot of really awesome resources for how to build and what you can do with HyperDocs at hyperdocs.co. I'm just realizing that most of the tools I'm showing you tonight have an out of the ordinary URL. So that's kind of interesting. So all of these give you a really great way to be able to organize the content that you're delivering to your students, and in an online place or an online setting, this will always be a great place to be able to direct students. And so these are something that I've worked with in my classroom over the years and found them to be particularly helpful. Even when I did use a learning management system, a HyperDoc allowed me to have all the information in one single place, all organized on one sheet. And I could include different visuals to make it easy for students to follow what I wanted them to do. They have a free and then they have a premium version, but don't even worry about this because you can create your own HyperDocs in Google Docs very easily. How would you go about doing that? I will again point you back to something we talked about a little bit earlier, and that was the choice board. The choice board is a great example of where you could use a HyperDoc approach to giving students access to all the things that they need to do in a certain learning progression. So what would take this from being just a document to being a HyperDoc is a lot more hyperlinks. So this has all the activities organized. If I had hyperlinks, they would take them to everything they needed to do right in one place. That would make this essentially a HyperDoc. And so it's not something you need to subscribe to. They've got great templates and tools over there, but you can certainly build something like this all on your own in Google Docs. And you can do some searching online and find templates that other teachers have created and used. And I think you'll find a lot of that to be really useful and easy to access. So let me go ahead and pause there to encourage you to share an idea for how you might use HyperDocs in your classroom as well. And while you are doing that, I am going to bring up our final tool of the night for teaching smarter, not harder in blended learning. Let's see here. Okay. All right, so some different ideas here. Someone said laying out an entire unit. Another agreement with that. I think that's a really great way to put this, that you could lay out and organize an entire unit's worth of study and the different activities students will do. And then being able to have that all in one place is great organization for you as the teacher also. Gives you a great place to go back and say, all right, what did I have them do here? How do I find that file? Saves you time from having to go and search in all your folders. Is it on Google Drive? Is it in the learning management system? Where did I put that? The HyperDoc means everything can be accessed quickly in one place, no matter where it's stored on the web. So the last but not least thing that I'd like to share with you tonight is probably the biggest challenge that we face as modeling instruction educators when teaching online. And I'm just going to throw this out as a quick trivia question. What do you think is the biggest challenge to modeling instruction online? You can go ahead and put it in the chat window. You can feel free to unmute and say what you think. Absolutely, Ryan. Getting kids to talk and have a discussion. It is the biggest challenge. And so in order to think about how to solve this challenge, we have to, I think, look at what did we do in the classroom to help solve this challenge. So what's the number one thing that students talk about and discuss with each other when they're in the modeling classroom? You would all say something that rhymes with whiteboards. You would say whiteboards. So whiteboards are really and truly at the hallmark of many of the discussions that we have in the modeling instruction classroom. Whether it's the boards that are prepared after a lab experiment or the boards that are prepared when students are trying to do a homework assignment or work out practice problems, whatever that might be, those are usually a centerpiece for the discussions that we have in class. So if you don't have great whiteboarding and don't have great collaboration around that, it can really make it hard to do discussion. And that is the obstacle that we face in online learning. So something that you may have tried before, and if you have, that's great. Maybe this will be some different ways to do it. Something that I want to share that I found very useful and we found in our modeling workshop this summer was particularly helpful for doing just this and getting the discussions going, was using Google Slides in order to do the discussions and whiteboards. Here is what I mean. So typically, you would have students prepare a whiteboard in a small group, and then they would present those to the entire class, and discussion would ensue. But now, we need a way for students to be able to create a whiteboard, to collaborate so that they can prepare it together, and then an easy way to be able to show it to everybody and invite discussion around it. So 4 different tasks need to be easy to replicate online. And that's a big challenge. We have found that Google Slides is probably the best tool for doing this, and here is why. What you have the opportunity to do with Google Slides is set up a whiteboarding template. I'm showing you one here that comes from chemistry, and what you would do is you would put the question right there on the slide for students. If there was any sort of a template for how you wanted them to work with it, let's say a BCA table or an LOL diagram for energy bar charts, whatever that might be, you put that on there as well in the template slide. And then in the corner, you go ahead and assign groups. And you put their names right on the slide, and you've already got the question preloaded there. Students then access this Google slide deck with all these pre-made slides for their group, and they access it from your video conferencing tool like Zoom, or they access it in some other way. And once they're doing that, now they can collaborate on a slide. They can use the chat feature of Google Slides to talk with each other, or they can also be in a breakout room in something like Zoom or a breakout room in Google Meet to be able to do this. And so in doing so, it allows students to have the opportunity to be able to create the whiteboards and collaborate around them. But instead of what we would do in the classroom, where we would send students to the whiteboards to start building them with their group, we have to take a little bit of that transition time out of it by setting up systems ahead. And that's what this sets up for us. By having the group members already labeled there, they know exactly which slide is theirs to work on. so you don't get anybody fighting over a slide or typing over each other. If they know who's in their group, it saves you a ton of time for the transition. And if you've already got the groups pre-labeled, you can use that to help you make your breakout rooms if you're making breakout rooms on Zoom, and you can do all that right away. So what you might get out of something like this would look a little bit like this. So I would have a whiteboard from group 1. Here's the question that I had them working on. This came directly off of a worksheet, and all I did was I screenshotted the worksheet problem and I pasted it onto the slide. I picked who was going to be in the group, and then I gave them the link to the Google slide. They found their way to where they needed to go. I put them in breakout rooms with their groups. They worked on it, talked about it. We come back as a whole group. And finally, once we're in the whole group, I do exactly what you see here, which is I show the whiteboards to the whole class. And then I have specific people that I'm calling on to invite into the discussion to get the conversation started. Here's another example. Students doing the same problem, but approaching it a little bit differently. Now I have the ability to say, all right, how do these boards compare? How do they contrast? A classic question that we would do in the whiteboard class is asking how are the boards the same? How might they be different? And that gets the conversation going. If all the students have the ability to see the slide deck, they can see all the whiteboards. It's pretty close to what we might have in the classroom where you can see everybody's at the same time. And in doing so, you get a really great ability for students to do their work, and they can do it no matter what. Even if they don't have the ability to draw on their screen or have a great ability to quickly make objects on the screen, they could at the very least do their writing on a piece of paper, take a picture of it, and add that picture to their whiteboard slide. And now you've got all the information in one place, and it's easily accessible. If somebody's working on a tablet, they can hand draw directly on these slides as well. And so it allows for that, just the same as it allows for people to type and to add objects in Google Slides. So what I've done is I've gone ahead and put together a template for you. Again, it's linked here in the slide deck. And the template is for making what I would call a homework worksheet out of Google Slides into whiteboards. I put some directions for how you can use the template in here. And then what that allows you to do is to basically give some different directions to your students, have that all in the slides, and have everything set up and ready to go. You can even put like example problems earlier on in the slide deck so that they can see how to do something if you wanted to remind them. And then you basically set up your question slides like I showed you before so that they can get right to work with their groups. You put them into breakout rooms, and then that's it. The other way that this can be used is you can also put the entire problem set on 1 or 2 slides, and then you can create a blank slide and let students choose what problems they're going to answer, and then let them go to any blank slide that they want to claim it. They can do the problems individually, and you could have individual whiteboards as well. So whether you're doing it in groups or individually, I think you'll find that this is a really terrific opportunity to get students whiteboarding and discussing in the Google Slides in your online classroom. So let me pause there, and one last time, invite you to share in the chat window what might be a way that you could use Google Slides whiteboards in your classroom. And while you do that, I'm going to go ahead and share the link to our slide deck for tonight so that you can have quick and easy early access to that. Inside of there are all the links to the different tools that I showed you tonight. And then after we hear from everybody, we'll go ahead and wrap up for the evening. Someone asked, is there some way to ID which kid is writing on which slide? There is actually, because if they're using Google Slides from their Google account, you should be able to see who made which edits when you look at the revision history. And so that's a really great advantage to doing this on Google Slides, because then it's connected to who typed what. So that's a really great question, Mark. Appreciate you, or Paul rather, appreciate you asking that. Mark says if they're logged into the Google account, can you see the history? Oh yeah, there you go. It's like we're all on the same page here. It's awesome. All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I so appreciate you joining tonight this webinar on teaching smarter, not harder in blended learning. Again, it's a pleasure to be with you and to share all these wonderful tools. I hope that one thing tonight could be at least helpful to you in moving forward with your online or blended learning teaching, or even your face-to-face learning if you're back in the classroom full-time with your students. I always like to end by asking, what was one thing that you liked or learned most tonight? So if you wouldn't mind closing us out with that in the chat window, we'd love to know what was your one key takeaway. And then we would love to wish you the best on the rest of your evening and the rest of your school year in 2020. Bill, I'm going to turn it back over to you while everybody puts their key takeaway in the chat room. But again, thanks so much for having me. My name is Gary Aboud. I will put my contact information in the chat window as well. If you want to email me with any questions, or if you want to set up time to talk more about any of this stuff afterwards.
Yeah, well, everybody's entering in their key point, key takeaway. Just like to say thanks again for coming and giving some time on this Thursday night. Happy October to everybody. Gary, thanks again for doing this. And like I said, we'll get this posted. And then Gary, anything you want Wendy to share, send it on to her. And then anyone will be able to have access. So good luck with the rest of your semester if you're currently teaching, and especially if you're back in school. Stay safe.
All right, thanks everybody.
Okay, have a great night.